All right. Welcome to our October 27th, 2020 Board of County Commissioners meeting. Please stand for invocation by Pastor Dave Albers and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Hey, I have to admit, I walk in and what do I get? I got a brownie. Who made the brownies? You made the brownies, right? Very good. Thank you very much.
Not very good. They're really good.
I know that. It looks very healthy. Chocolate, a lot of antioxidants. I thought I'd do something a little bit different today because of all the political rhetoric and garbage that goes on. Maybe we have to remind ourselves how blessed we are really that we live in this nation and that we have this freedom to assemble. We have a freedom to speak our mind. We have a freedom to vote. We have a freedom, we have so many things that the rest of the world does not have, So, can we sing? Is it okay to sing? Can we sing God Bless America? Sure. All right. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the ocean, wide with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home. Anybody want to come join our choir?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I think the better part is to be identified who should join the choir.
All right. Today we have a preset of 10:30 for a public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Article 6 related to tobacco products and Article 7 related to electronic nicotine delivering devices, Chapter 87, General Ordinance of Martin County Code. We have a consent poll, contracts that meet threshold for board approval, B1 and B2 by Commissioner Hurd. And with that, Commissioner Smith.
Mr. Chairman, move approval of the agenda.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Today we have a proclamation. Are they here?
No, I don't believe anyone is here from Treasure Coast Hospice, so we will accept on their behalf, and I'll read a short blurb. This is a proclamation declaring Hospice and Palliative Care Month in Martin County, Florida. Hospice is a program that works, offering person-centered, compassionate care, ensuring people dignity, choice, and quality of life. Treasure Coast Hospice has cared for our community since 1982. In recognition of November as Hospice and Palliative Care Month, the board encourages residents to increase their understanding and awareness of the importance of care at the end of life.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start now with public comment. Miss Missy Campbell.
And prior to the comment, Commissioner, I just need
I'm
to,
sorry.
that's okay, I just need to do my little spiel here. So we are currently in what we refer to as an election season. We have county commissioner that is in an active campaign for re-election. Public comment is to address the Board of County Commissioners as a whole. We do not allow partisan politicking, which is defined as advocating the election or defeat of a particular candidate. Use of words, dates, signs, props, and/or wearing apparel or nameplates that convey a message or express advocacy for a person or group of persons is also not allowed. So thank you for your cooperation, and you'll have 3 minutes for your comments.
Good morning. I stand before you today, Missy Campbell, and I wear many hats. Believe it or not, at one point I was an 18-year-old, as so were you guys. I also have 2 children that were 18, and I taught school for 34 years dealing with many children. And now I'm in charge of the Palm City Chamber of Commerce. And so now I wear the business hat, which has been a little bit difficult to change to, but I got it. So all of those areas, no matter what I've done, I've always cared about our community, as do some of you, all of you. Sorry about that. All right, so I'm here to talk about the tobacco ordinance today. If I was looking to locate a business in this area, one of the things I would look at would be how does the community care about their young people and their children, not just the school district. And I think that by enforcing this, by having businesses get licenses to be retail sellers and to also penalize people that don't do that and don't follow the law by selling tobacco to children under the age of 21. 18 is under the age of 21, even though it's considered an adult and can vote. It's too close to the high school age students, and then they bring these products into the schools. And many young adults today don't think that vaping is smoking. It tastes good and it smells good, so therefore it can't be bad for you. Sadly, that's their perception. So President Trump raised the age to 21 to get tobacco out of the schools, and that's the federal law. That is not the state law. So therefore, we need to enforce that here in Martin County. The local business community supports this ordinance that will keep our young people healthy and safe. We also very much are happy with the process that it says here there's going to be a tobacco trust fund so that the money from these licenses can go into educating our children. As part of the Character Counts Board for the United Way, I know how important it is to get this into the schools. Young people today need education about tobacco. So I urge you please to pass this ordinance today. Thank you.
Thank you, Missy. Walter Charette, maybe? You might want to fix your name when I get there. Followed by Michael.
Good morning. I'm an old folk that lives in Golden Gate, and I just have a question. We're voting on the CRA today, and there's one thing that I'm worried about. It's code violations. I live in an area, the street where I live, I'm surrounded by code violations. On one side of me, I've got a house that is rented, and they're repairing boats. And my cars get spray paint on them all the time. The other side, we have a regulation that says that if you have an outbuilding on your property, if you are an owner of that property and living in there, you're allowed to rent it out to other people. Well, in our case, we have renters in all places in there and no owners. The owners are in Venezuela. The third area that bothers me is, and I've been fighting with this for quite some time with Irene and Rachel, we have a large landscaping company that is across the street from me on residential property. It's $1 million operations with tons of equipment. Trouble is, the code people do not do anything about it, and they go there during the day, and you can't catch a thief when they're not there. You've got to be there. The code people have to be there when they come in and when they leave. But they have a lot of equipment on there, and nothing has happened. The fourth thing that bothers me is I live on the Martin County Golf Course, now Sailfish Sands or something like that, and we have a jungle there. President Trump recently told the governors of California and Oregon that it was their responsibility to take care of the forests that are burning up. Well, we've got terrible problems. Once we get over this wet season, our woods behind us are just dangerous. So I'd like to see them clear that out. And I think that's about it. I'm really worried that all these violations are going to be grandfathered in with the new CRA. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Michael Circus, followed by Kat
Harold?
Renner. Yes. Oh, I'm sorry.
May I just make a brief comment?
Sure.
A brief. Sir, I'm happy to get, after this meeting, or to, if you would give one of our staff your contact information, because we are we have some things that we have been working on. When we distributed masks recently, I observed some of the same things that you were talking about after hours. So our code enforcement has been in there at least 3 different times recently doing after-hour sweeps, and we have a list of compliance that we're going through. So I appreciate your concern. We can talk about it more during the agenda item, but we'd be happy to sit down with you one-on-one as well. Thank you.
Okay, go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Michael Serkis from Palm City. I'm speaking this morning on behalf of myself, as well as being an advocate of the 501c4 Cigar Rights for America organization. As a tobacco enthusiast, I've been able to lobby both in Tallahassee as well as Washington, D.C. I never thought I'd have to do this on a local level, but nevertheless, here I am today. I can tell you I've made a network of hundreds of people within the cigar industry, both for growing tobacco production as well as distribution. I've never met a single person who advocates for selling tobacco to youth. Not a single person. So that's why I'm a little concerned today that we're looking to do a county-level ordinance that's going to put on a licensure for a licensure that all retailers in Martin County have already purchased from the state of Florida. The state of Florida's DBPR has licensures that already gives the authority to both state and local enforcement for the enforcement of laws against the selling of tobacco. And as such, they have a database through DBPR where Martin County sheriffs, local police departments, or even state-level enforcement and DBPR's own enforcement can go around and do testing to see who is selling illegally and who is not. Having a county-level ordinance is going to do nothing more than create a financial and an administrative burden on businesses within Martin County and provide no resource that is not already available to the local law enforcement. I highly support you guys to work with law enforcement to try to root out the people that are selling to minors, because that puts a blemish on everybody else who's trying to do things the right way. But I would sincerely hope that you would not financially and administratively burden those who are already doing things correctly. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Okay, Kat Rennick. No?
Can you say it again, Harold?
Huh?
Can you say it again?
Kat, C-A-T, or K-A-T, Rennick. Nobody's here. Okay. Joan, oh, starts with a C. Huh? Okay, you want to comment after on an agenda item?
Possibly based on the land use. The CRA.
Oh, okay. All right, Mr. Tom Pine. I know he's here. There we go.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Tom Pine. I've been a resident of Martin County for over 45 years. Presently live in Jensen Beach area. At the joint meeting October 21st, 2020 of Martin County Commissioners, the Martin County School Board, the City of Stewart Commission, the Village of Indiantown, one thing stood out to me. When the County Commissioner of Jensen Beach stated that he had been inundated with calls concerning all the building going on in the Jensen-Rio area. He stated that all building that was presently going on was under the direct supervision of the City of Stewart, and that Martin County Commission had nothing to do with any of the present building. On October 21st, 2020, that was true statement. But in just a short time, new development on Savannah Road called The Reserve will start. This project is behind in the mobile home park called Tropical Acres, which is just north of Jensen Beach VFW. This development was approved by the Martin County Commission, and it will include 187 new homes. With all the ongoing flooding throughout the county, I'm hoping these 187 homes are able to keep their own water on their own yards. Martin County Commission has been approving Martin County projects, many projects in Martin County. But unlike the projects going on in Jensen Beach, Rio area, most of the projects the Martin County Commission has approved won't be noticed by the general public because they are out west where they violate the urban service boundaries and they violate the Martin County Comprehensive Plan. These developments won't show up until the streets of Stewart start to clog up, just like they do in Broward County. Hence, the Browardization of Martin County continues in the dark of night. Why, you ask? Because that's what the good old boys and the pay-to-play crowd wants. The Martin County taxpayers once again are just the suckers paying the bill. Thank you for your time and have a good day.
Thank you, Mr. Pine. Jennifer Ahern, and that is my last speaker form for public comment.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to say I'm here to support the tobacco ordinance, and I want to thank Commissioner Hetherington for keeping this at the forefront of your priorities, even though we've had so much going on in the past couple of months. Do I need to speak louder? Sorry. Like Misty Campbell said, I wear many hats. I work for the Children's Services Council of Martin County. I volunteer as a board advisory member for the Quit Doc Foundation. I volunteer at the Hope Sound Chamber of Commerce, and I'm a mom of a teenage boy. I also spend a lot of my time volunteering in local youth athletic organizations. This football season, thankfully, when we were able to begin our football season, our first practice, we had several of our best athletes struggling to run 100 yards. After the practice, I pulled them aside and said, "What's going on?" They admitted that they had been vaping all through the COVID. They're 13 years old. They did not purchase these electronic nicotine devices online. They're purchasing them here locally at stores. Thankfully, my husband and I worked with these kids. We got them off the vaping. They're performing a lot better on the field now, but we have got to address this at a local level. This is the best thing that we can do for our kids. They are selling these items in schools. They are getting them at stores, and it is spreading like wildfire. In 2018, over 23% of Martin youth were regularly using electronic nicotine devices. That's higher than Okeechobee County, Palm Beach County, and St. Lucie County. So again, I'm here to support this ordinance, and I'm happy that this ordinance punishes the retailers instead of the children and the youth that are becoming addicted to these devices, and they are facing felony charges in some cases. And I know the school district is working to try to provide alternative programming and, deferment programs. However, this is a really good ordinance for our county, and I'm very happy that you have brought this before us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, now off to Commissioner comments. Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. I received a couple calls this weekend from some of the folks that were with us at our joint meeting last week with the school board and the city. There was apparently some back and forth communication between some of the staff with the school board and some of the parents that were involved in the playground discussions that we had at our joint meeting. And the tenor of the discussion with the staff is that there was no need to do any further planning or discussion because there were no new options that were going to be presented or looked at, and that we would be moving on. And that really kind of got generated because after our meeting, I reached out to the Regional Planning Council and talked to them about putting together a planning charrette in Jensen that would take all of the information and all of the stuff that we know that exists and see if we and the community and the school department clearly, and anybody else that wishes to participate, come up with some better alternatives that first and foremost protect the community playground that was built, but also achieves what the school board is trying to get done relative to the access issues, the parking issues, school siting, drainage, water quality, and all the other things that go into a site plan. So I share that with you because, Ed, I don't know, and unfortunately we don't get to talk about these things. I don't know if you've had any communication with your folks or not, but effectively it's almost as if we didn't have the discussion on Tuesday, whatever day that was last week, at the joint meeting about the various issues between Palm City and Jensen Beach Elementary with the two new schools that are going to be built. So I would suggest or ask, because I guess one thing we probably fell short of at the joint meeting was asking the school board to commit either in a vote or just in a verbal discussion, but that we send a communication to the school board members, superintendent, once again asking them to put things on pause and allow the community to engage in meaningful dialogue and discussion that would give the broadest level of input into the siting of the two new schools and the important factors that the community expressed with us and that we talked to them about at our joint meeting. So if that's okay, and if that can come, it doesn't matter if it comes from the full board or if it comes from the chair signing it, but I would like to send a letter to all of them asking them to formally, I think they have a meeting tonight, or did they have one last night?
It's tonight, I think it's tonight.
So it would be appropriate if we could send that letter to be put into the public record for them, requesting again that they reiterate to their staff what I thought I heard from a majority of the members that were present at the joint meeting that agreed that if at the very least case, we would put a pause in place allowing for more discussion. And I believe it was Tricia Lee Roberts who also said, well, that you do know if we were to pause, that could delay us up to a year in the school starting, but that's possible. And I didn't hear any dissension from anybody at all that said that that was a terrible idea. So the communication that was being expressed to me from the folks up in Jensen that were involved in it were that the staff believes that they have full direction from the school board to move forward with the plans that they showed us, and that there really wasn't going to be any more discussion. And that wasn't, I don't believe, what we heard from the school board members that were attending the meeting. So at least we would put it on the record. I plan on doing the charrette with or without them, quite frankly, because until they put the first piece of concrete in the ground, I believe it's that important to our community, and probably Ed to yours out in Palm City, that we get this thing right. And as we stated, or I stated, I threw out 50 years. The staff was quick to suggest, and some of the school board members know it was really 100 years. So anyway, that's my my update or discussion, and if that's okay with the board, I would very much appreciate it if we send that letter to them.
Everybody okay with that?
No, I don't want to substitute my judgment for their judgment. They're elected to do the job that they're elected to do, and that's not our job. I have a concern about staying in my own lane. I don't think it's appropriate for the Board of County Commissioners to try to regulate what the school board is supposed to do. So I'm not going to be a signatory to that letter.
Well, just in response to that, I would add, and Ed, I don't know how much money you have invested in Palm City. The district and the county commission has over $600,000 invested in Jensen Beach Elementary over the last probably 18 years. Interestingly enough, when we used to talk about joint interlocal agreement discussions and so on way back when, the things that we were funding at Jensen Beach Elementary, there was no problem with anybody at that time, with the school board members coming to us and asking for us to fund the things that had been agreed to be funded through the years. So I'm not telling them how to do their job. What I'm asking them to do is to engage the community in a meaningful way, and that's not by having Zoom calls and whatever else has been alleged that they did as outreach. It is real, honest-to-God dialogue with your community, sitting down face-to-face, looking at what's important and what's not important. And that's a community thing. That has nothing to do with the county commission, with not the school board, not the city of Stewart. These are things that are incredibly impactful on our community. And if we don't speak up, if I don't speak up, I don't know who else will for them. But I'll make a motion that we send a letter to the school board outlining the things that I had discussed earlier.
Ms. Christus.
I just wanted to, so they met last week, Commissioner Smith, and they don't have another regular meeting until the 17th of November. They do have a workshop on the 5th of November. Ms. Woods and I have a meeting next week on Friday, I believe, with the current superintendent as well as the new superintendent, Dr. Millay, to discuss these two issues. So however you'd like for us to proceed, we'd be happy to do that.
I was under the understanding there was some sort of special meeting tonight or soon to discuss some of this stuff, but if not, that's fine. But
I'll find out.
I would get it to them and just outline our concerns and what I thought we discussed and had a very long conversation about at our joint meeting, and I guess somehow maybe the staffs didn't agree with that.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. I was going to wait until my commissioner comments. I've had similar conversations with some of the folks in Palm City. For those people that are not familiar with what we're talking about, Jensen Beach Elementary School and Palm City Elementary School are the two oldest schools in the district, and both of them are slated to be replaced with half-a-cent sales tax that the community voted for. But they also are in a unique situation where, in Palm City's case, 10 years ago, the community chipped in their money and, more importantly, their time and effort to replace a 30-year-old community-built playground called Wildcat Wonderland that had been at Palm City Elementary since the late 80s, early 90s, and we had a interlocal agreement because it wasn't just a school district playground, it was classified as a community playground. When my children were there in the 2000s, the playground, which was pressure-treated lumber back then, had basically fallen apart. It had 30 years of life, and you can imagine the thousands of children that played on it and made memories there. So the community rallied together, once again, decades later, and replaced it. The company that we used is called Leathers and Associates out of Buffalo, New York. What's unique about that is that they do not just come in and build you a playground. The kids are very much involved in the design, and then this company basically does the construction drawings, the engineer drawings, the safety, and they bring all of the materials down, or they source them locally, and a lot of that was through donations. And then they oversee a week-long community build where hundreds and hundreds of residents came and invested their time, so we saved all that money. The project had come up short, so I, with my district funds, and knowing that it was not just a school district or a school site playground, that it would be open to the community in the summers, on weekends, to maximize it, chipped in approximately $75,000 of district funds. And some of the other folks that I know the principal, you had the ability to buy small things as small as a brick or a fence post, or large things like structures. And we built a beautiful playground 10 years ago, expecting it to stay there. Its life expectancy is probably 30 years. And it also was in their interlocal that the district would be responsible for the daily, weekly, and annual maintenance of it. So when I hear stories that it's starting to become decrepit, I don't understand how that's possible. Jensen Beach Elementary School 3 years ago completed their own. Same setup, same company. And now that the schools are being rebuilt, the playgrounds were not left in consideration for the schools to be built around them. There's been some back and forth between the district, and I don't think it's so much the board as it is maybe the district personnel that had said they had done quite an extensive outreach, and maybe they have, but I haven't run into too many of the people that had been reached out to, at least not the stakeholders, and I would consider myself one of them. They did have a Palm City Chamber lunch and learn, if you will, and brought out their COO and their architects to explain that they really could not save the playgrounds in their current locations and that they would try to relocate them. Last week on Wednesday, we had a joint meeting with the school district and a couple other governmental entities, but it really was basically between the school and the county. Commissioner Smith, I believe, put in nearly twice what I did. You put in $600,000? Or, yeah.
Well, it was a combination of impact fees, district funds, and other county tax.
So with that in mind, I'm pretty sure that that would give the district commissioner, who, like he said...
In fairness, that's over 15 years.
Okay. Yeah, and I know that I'm sure the commissioners back in 1991 had put in money because we had an interlocal then as well. I just can't see those financial records back that far. So anyway, my point is that when they needed the assistance and the money, they reached out to the commissioner and there was a collaboration. And now I think that we both have paid the price of admission to at least be involved in the conversation. I hear what Commissioner Hurd is saying, and I would also like to stay in my lane. and not get involved in specifically, exclusively district matters, because I wouldn't want them to come over here and tell us what we should be doing. But I think this is a collaborative situation where we did participate, and taxpayer monies were used. And more important than that, for me at least, and I've had people reach out, the schools are in bad shape, and a lot of the families have been waiting for years for the replacement. So the feedback that I had received after the meeting was that the Palm City families, at least, and not all of them, it wasn't a comprehensive feedback, but a lot of them reached out and said they do not want to slow the project down. They do not want the school to wait an additional year in an effort to figure out the playground. My personal thinking is it shouldn't. One should have nothing to do with the other. We can figure out if the playground can stay where it is. They showed several versions of layouts that had leaving the playgrounds in both locations exactly where they currently are. Okay? In Palm City's case, at least, if it can't be left alone in its current location, I don't think anyone from the district, now again, not the board, but the district, and if they did, no one shared it with me, has reached out to the original company, Leathers and Associates, and asked them if it's possible to disassemble a playground and relocate it. You know what it's like. You're sinking 6x6 posts 5-6 feet deep in concrete into the ground. They can't just be pulled out and relocated. So if it costs you $100,000 or a couple $100,000 to redo the playground, in Palm City they said, well, we're going to save what's ever savable and relocate it. Well, my question was, what's the percentage? If it's 100% now, what percentage would they be moving to the new location? Because if it's 20 or 15%, like as a little pat on the back, that's not going to work. So we haven't, as John Paul Jones has said, we have not yet begun to fight. My biggest disappointment with the process is that the district is now bringing this forward very late in the game, and then saying that if, as Commissioner Smith had recommended, if we were to do something about it, we would be slowing down the project. And I don't find that to be exactly accurate. So we have a meeting with the district school board member, Mr. DiTerlizzi. He and I have already had contact. The president of the PTA and a couple other very involved moms, some of them were involved when we built it. Their kids are long gone, but it's a passion project for them. So we're going to have a meeting, I believe, this week. So I will second Commissioner Smith's motion to send a letter, because I think it shows a level of seriousness that we're involved in here. I'm not looking to slow down, at least in Palm City, the building of the new school, the replacement of the school. I think that's paramount. But I don't think that working on creating a fair playground strategy should necessarily be considered as slowing down the school construction. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Heatherington.
I certainly understand that those two schools have an overall impact in Martin County, but I understand Commissioner Hurd's, comments about staying in our lane. Is there, and certainly your districts are impacted, and your constituents in that districts, as we all expressed at the last meeting, we all have the same constituents. Is there any way that could be handled by the district commissioner, that they send a letter for the record from both of you to the school district, school board, and then offer to, or encourage public participation rather than that coming from the entire board?
So each commissioner would write their own letter.
So Commissioner Campy, with the Palm City, and Commissioner Smith, regarding the Jensen Beach School.
Commissioner Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We can absolutely do that. I mean, I've already sent correspondence to the district from our district. The problem is we sat here for 3 hours and had a joint meeting with 20-some, plus or minus, whatever, elected officials sitting around the room having a conversation about all things joint meeting. And all three boards, for those of us who were in the communication, were in that dialogue, and I heard certain things said that were agreed upon. So it wasn't like it was a district commissioner having a conversation with a school board member saying, hey, this is important to our district, let's do this. That was a joint meeting of all the elected officials in Martin County at the school board, city, and county level. I mean, from my perspective, that's why I would send it from the board, because the full board was there participating in that conversation, and we are required, actually, not for that purpose, but to be at that meeting by the state for the certain things on the population trends and on the building trends and so on that we have to be there. So it's the one chance we get to have an official sit down with our counterparts and have conversations about our community, about planning for the future. And for me, if we don't take a stand as a board collectively, then that meeting is meaningless. The conversation was meaningless. The meeting is meaningless. We shouldn't participate because we are there to do, as a collective body, I think, what's the best for our community, at least in our conversations and in our discussions. So, I mean, I appreciate the offer and the idea, but I think it is much more important that we reflect this as a board.
Okay. Any other comments to that?
So the request is just that we send a letter and encourage public participation in the planning and the design of the new schools.
On the two sites, Palm City and Jensen Beach Elementary. And Ed, I don't know if you've had any discussions any further about funding a charrette, but I plan on doing that in my district. It's the only way that I believe at this point in time we can pull in the community in a large enough, meaningful way that they will feel that their ownership of the process is complete. We should have done, I said this at the meeting, we should have done this 2 years ago. And that never happened. And so both from the playground perspective, but from the community's perspective, because everybody in the community will have access to that school, and certainly those who will have children there will have access to it, and it's important. So, but effectively, yeah, it's
During the charrette, then you would have school district, school board member.
We would have the public would be, everybody would be invited to come and participate. We would invite the architects that had done the work. This was also something that was a little equally frustrating. I asked my assistant on Friday to communicate to the staff to send us a copy of the presentations that the school board did. And effectively, we were told that really wasn't needed because those decisions have already been made and they're not taking any new ideas. So now what they're forcing me to do is to do a public records request of the school board to get the stupid presentation that was done, because the staff has determined that it really isn't important enough to give us that information, which was already presented at a public meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'm interested in the letter, and the advantage of having it be from the board is it shows unified support for the decisions that were, the conversation that we're having. In Palm City, I don't believe a charrette is necessary. I haven't had any requests for that. There's a handful of people that we're either going to try to figure out where it can be left, or if it's going to be relocated, what level. We would expect them to bring in the company that built it in the first place to oversee that at the district's expense. So I'm interested in a letter, but I'm not interested in the charrette because we're going to also try to keep the project on a timeline. We're not going to be threatened necessarily into saying, well, if you even look at this project, you're going to slow us down and it's going to delay a year. I don't think that any business person, anyone in construction understands that having a conversation about moving some of the playground, it's not going to affect, a 100,000 square foot building that's under construction. And if it is so time sensitive, then they really didn't give us an opportunity to participate if they're at that point already. I don't believe they are, but we're comfortable in Palm City, at least in the collaboration between the school board member and I believe other school board members, based on what we heard at the joint meeting. I feel comfortable with that, but I think they need to have a letter that shows that we're serious about this, and as Commissioner Smith said, we're not just going to talk about it for a week and then move on.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Campy. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed?
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting.
Mr. Chair, just one more question. Taryn, do I need to ask you to do a public records request to the school board to get the presentation?
No, I heard that. I'm going to do that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Moving on with commissioner comments. Commissioner Howard.
I'm all set, thank you.
I'm all set. Commissioner Campy, you're all set. Commissioner Hurd, you're all set. Okay. County Administrator?
No, sir, I'm good.
Okay. Now we're going to move on to, so we have a 10:30 preset. Can we take that early or not? No. We have to wait till 10:30. Okay.
I think for the benefit of those individuals that want to be here for the,
Okay.
they're not going to come until
I
then.
just realized the room is here for one item, and I
Okay, sorry.
thought we would move it up, but no. Okay. Moving on to consent pull, contracts that meet threshold for board approval. Christy Brotherton. So you're going to do your whole item, not just what was pulled, right? Yeah, please. Then you don't have to come back.
It's not that we don't love having you come back.
I'm sorry?
It's not that we don't want you to come back.
I have to come back for my departmental, so I'll be here anyways.
I think that's what you were saying.
Okay. Christy Brotherton, Purchasing Manager. We are here to discuss the consent item. The first item on the list is our Murphy Road Bridge Replacement, Construction Engineering and Inspection Services. The staff is recommending that the board award the contract to AE Engineering Incorporated in the amount of $570,900 and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. Do we have any questions on this item?
Yeah, Commissioner Hurd, how do you want to do this? You want to?
That's A, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the first one.
I don't have questions on A.
Okay.
Do you want to vote on that one specifically, and then, no?
Okay.
Which one did you have a question on, or which?
B1 and B2.
We'll vote on all. We can wait.
Okay.
Okay. The next item, this is for our fire rescue uniforms contract. This is a continuing services contract. It was issued in 2016. It's a 3-year term contract. It had 2 optional 1-year renewals, which both of those renewals have been issued. The contract expires in September 30th of 2021. However, there was a contract not to exceed limit, which we have reached. And when that happens, we have to go out to bid early, even though it's met the contract or has not met the contract expiration term. We did go out to bid for this contract. We did not receive enough responsive bids to award the contract, so we rejected all the bids. We need to go back out to bid. So this request is to increase the not-to-exceed limit by $25,000, which requires board approval to do so, and that will cover the fiscal year 21 request for the fire department to continue with their services.
There were no time thresholds on the item, so I was assuming that it was a 1-year contract?
No,
It is a what year, how many year contract?
So this contract was a 3-year term contract with 2 optional 1-year renewals. Both of the renewals have been issued, so the current expiration date is through September 30th of 2021. We are just requesting additional contract not to exceed value so it can get us through the rebid process. So there's not necessarily a time frame added to this contract. It'll expire September 30th regardless.
So if it's a 3-year contract, why is the expiration date a year from now?
Well, there's 2 optional 1-year renewals that have been issued on the contract. So it's a total of 5 years.
Okay, so in the last 5 years, what was the amount that was spent on uniforms?
They are approaching the $750,000.
For 5 years, not 1?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that's the total value. So the recommended action for this item is we are requesting that the board approve a $25,000 increase to the contract not to exceed limit for RFB 2016-2860, which is for fire rescue uniforms. And we are also requesting that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. The next one is our tree trimming contract. This is a newer contract. It's a 2018 contract, which is utilized countywide. Staff is requesting an increase of $50,000 to this contract. We have some purchase orders that have been issued. There's a need to continue with services. We will need to rebid. We are working on the bid documents right now. Because it is a countywide contract, we will draft the bid documents and we get input from each of the departments so that we're covering all the needs. Same thing, this was a 3-year term contract with 2 optional 1-year renewals, but we will not be issuing any renewals because, again, this is a 2018 contract and we've already hit the not-to-exceed limit. So when this comes back, we go back out to bid, we will be increasing the NTE limit, so we can hopefully get through 5 years the next time.
So this current contract, which doesn't include renewal options, expires in April of 2021?
Correct, that
So
would be
this-
the 3-year term.
So this contract begins on April 10th, 2021, and when does it expire?
No, this contract is from 2018.
No,
No, the new one.
A new one.
The new one, it would, depending if we can get through that. I mean, we're hoping to put it back out to bid within the next month. So whenever the board would approve the contract award, once we get through the solicitation process, then the contract would be issued for that. And then the other one would just fall off. We can
And
terminate for convenience.
the new contract, what's the term?
It would still be a 3-year term with 2 optional 1-year renewals.
Okay.
All of our continuing services contracts are set up that way.
So
we-
it's not for 1 year, it's for 3 years for
Correct.
$650,000. All right.
I mean, well, the not to exceed limit, when we try to figure those numbers, we try to look at it as if it's a 5-year. Most of our contracts go through a 5-year term. So it would be the 3-year term with the 2 optional 1 year. So we treat them as a 5-year
Okay.
contract.
Those are the
we are
questions I have. I don't have objections to them. I just didn't understand
That's
because
fine.
there was, it said that both contracts were going to expire in less than a year.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Okay. Just to finish up with this one, staff is requesting that the board approve a $50,000 increase to the contract not to exceed limit for RFB 2018-3046 for tree trimming, and move that the board authorize the county administrator or designee to execute any and all documents related to this request. And that's all I have.
Move approval.
Second for discussion.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Chris, for everybody that was listening, because it sounded just a tad confusing, but whatever. So, essentially, the 600,000, or the not-to-exceed limit, is that for the full 5 years, even though it's a 3-year with 2 extensions?
Well, the way that these continuing services contract works is we have a not-to-exceed limit or the term limit. So each of the contracts are for a 3-year term with 2 optional 1-year renewals. So if for some reason the county wants to
Yeah, I get that part.
rebid after the 3 years, they can do so. But they also have the option to renew it 1 year at a time for two more years.
Essentially, though, the not-to-exceed number, I think I was trying to understand and get where Commissioner Hurd was going, is for the full length of the extensions as
Yes.
well.
Yes.
And that's what we're adjusting today.
That's what
because-
we're adjusting today, just to get us through the rebid process, so we don't have any lapse in services during the solicitation process.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Hurd, seconded by Commissioner Smith. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion carries unanimously.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on to public hearing number 1, legislative public hearing to consider adoption of Comprehensive Plan Amendment 19-28, Golden Gate Future Land Use Map. Ms. Irene Suttelmeyer.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm happy to be here today with our 6th and final adoption hearing for the amendment of a future land use map in one of our CRAs. So this is the 3rd and final hearing regarding the amendment of the future land use in the Golden Gate CRA. On September 15th, the board approved the transmittal of the proposed amendment to the state and regional reviewing agencies. There's a supplemental memo with this agenda item, and that includes communications from the state and regional reviewing agencies, and none made any comment regarding impacts to state or regional resources or facilities. The supplemental memo also includes 43 pages of sketch and legal descriptions prepared by Tom Walker, the Martin County Surveyor. And I want to acknowledge and thank the county surveyor for his tremendous assistance preparing these sketches and legal descriptions, not only for Golden Gate amendments, but other CRAs as well. So you can see on the screen is an image of the Golden Gate CRA. Along the western side is Dixie Highway and the FEC corridor, the Martin County Golf Course to the north, and Stewart Yacht and Country Club to the south. This is on the screen now is the current future land use map. The red is medium density residential, the lilac is general commercial, yellow is industrial, turquoise blue is general institutional. There's a little 3-acre pocket of high density residential, and the Lamar Howard Park is public recreation. This is the future land use map with the mixed use future land use overlay displayed. And this is the proposed future land use map. The brown color is CRA neighborhood. The rose color is CRA center. Again, the yellow is industrial, and the turquoise blue is general institutional. The CRA center replaces general business and general commercial future land use and some medium density residential. As with all the CRAs, the industrial future land use is being retained, general institutional is being retained, and it is being assigned to some additional parcels that are county owned and used primarily for stormwater or other public purposes. There's in the staff recommendation for approval, I want to point out this small little 6,000 square foot piece here that has the general institutional future land use is actually unopened right-of-way. We don't assign future land use designations to right-of-way, so we'll be removing that little general institutional, and it'll be depicted as the right-of-way that it is. So staff's recommendation is for approval of the ordinance adopting CPA 1928, including the revision to the map that removes the general institutional from that place. The legal description is accurate. It's already removed the general institutional from that piece. The agenda materials show the documentation of the public notice for this meeting, the signs, the published ad, and the mailed notice. And this verbal presentation is a short summary of a more detailed staff report. It concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for staff? No questions for staff. We did, Ms. Collins, did you want to speak to this? You don't? Okay.
Anybody else from public?
Huh?
Anybody else from the public?
Nope.
I'd move staff's recommendation.
Second.
Wait.
Oh.
Ted.
Speaker.
That's why I said we needed to ask for public comment just for the heck of it.
Yeah, that is what it says. I'm so sorry, Ted.
I tried, Ted.
Thank you. Thanks for saving me. I didn't want to miss this last public hearing. I've been to every one of these. To offer my support for what you've been doing with the CRAs has been fantastic. I will also just throw my support in for the quasi-judicial public hearing number 2 later in the day, amending Article 12 and the zoning atlas as well. I think this is the very last of the CRA projects we're getting approved. I think we started this process, Doug, I think we started talking to the previous director of the Regional Planning Council probably 3 years ago on this, and we're pushing to try and do it faster than the 2 years he committed to. I think we're right in line with the time, and I'm very excited to see this come to a conclusion and the success that this is going to lead to in our CRAs. So thank you all for your support throughout the entire process and today.
Thank you, Mr. Astolfi, for having spoken at all 6 meetings. You won the steak knives.
Yeah. All right. You second that? Or, Stacy. Okay, we have a motion by Commissioner Smith, seconded by Commissioner Heatherington, and I just realized your light's on, so did you want to say something? Go.
Yeah, just a real quick one, really a comment to Ted's comment. I think from the body of work that was done the entire process, from the Regional Planning Council, our staff, and certainly the CRA community that has participated in this process for almost 20 years, and maybe in some instances longer than 20 years. This is really the culmination of a career, if you want to call it, of folks in the CRA program that have committed themselves to seeing us really get to a planning horizon and a level of detail that will hopefully see our neighborhoods and communities become what that expectation was 20 years ago when we were doing workshops all over the county with various planners and so on from 20 plus years ago. So thank you to all those involved and really to all those CRA members that relentlessly for years participated in meetings and kept on going. And I'm getting the scratching of the head. That means I'm done talking. Thank you, Harold, for the time.
We still do have the LDRs we got to get to, too.
I know.
Okay.
But
All
now
right.
it's out of the way and I don't have to do it twice.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye. All opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Moving on to quasi-judicial number 2, second public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance creating Division 7 Golden Gate Community Redevelopment Code in Article 12, LDR, and amending the zoning atlas. Also, Irene, that's walking away, and now we have Mr. Dana. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. Do we have any ex parte communication, Commissioner Smith?
If I do, they're filed.
Commissioner Heather?
If any, they've been filed.
If I do, they've been filed. Commissioner Campy?
I don't have any.
Okay. Commissioner Hurd?
If I have any, they've been filed.
Okay. If anybody's offering testimony, please stand and be sworn in.
Raise your right hand, please. Do you swear or affirm that the evidence you are about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Yes.
And has the agenda item been submitted in your work history?
Yes.
Okay. Are there any interveners? With that, proceed.
Good morning, Commissioners. Susan Corres, Manager, Office of Community Development. Very, very happy to be here this morning to present this item to you. Article 12, Division 1, as you know, requires one ordinance for the adoption of both the land development regulations and the amendment of the zoning atlas. The staff report was prepared by Irene Settlemyer, Senior Planner, Growth Management Department, and the agenda packet does include a copy of her work history as well as mine and documentation of public notice. The public was noticed via community signage, advertisement in the paper, and 872 letters that were mailed to businesses and residents within the CRA and 1,000 feet out of the CRA, out of the boundary of the CRA. Presenting this item is Mr. Dana Little, Urban Design Director of the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council, and Martin County Growth Management and CRA staff are here to assist with any questions you might have.
Mr. Little.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to present what will hopefully be the adoption hearing of the Golden Gate CRA Land Development Code update. This is as Susan stated, this is the second public hearing to consider the adoption of this ordinance, which is the Division 7 Golden Gate Community Redevelopment Code in Article 12, as well as amending the zoning atlas. Many of these slides you've seen many times at this point, including this series. We started this effort back in August of 2018, and throughout this process, we've had 43 public meetings, 22 of which have been in the evening, and we've conducted, we think, about 111, 112 interviews with residents, community members, business owners, etc. This was originally slated to be a 24-month time period, which we should have finished in August, but we did miss a couple of months in the early days of COVID-19 when we had to pause and postpone some of the public meetings. So we're really happy that we were able to continue with staff and with your assistance as a board and your other lower boards, continue this effort through this challenging time. This is Ms. Corres' favorite schedule. It's the green box schedule, so this is our last meeting. All of the green boxes represent the public hearings and public meetings that we've been to throughout this entire effort. And here we are for Golden Gate at the adoption hearing. As I said, you've seen most of this before. The core elements of the future land use map designations and modification that Irene Settlemeyer just went through is the creation of the CRA Center and CRA Neighborhood. One of the primary goals of that was to eliminate the future land use mixed use overlays and the zoning mixed use overlays. The overlays created a lot of confusion over the years, and so what we've done is sort of forensically go back through and understand what all the entitlements are today, whether using an overlay or not, and then try to turn those into a single zoning code and regulating plan. The rezoning will be rezoning Golden Gate to a single zoning category, which would be Golden Gate CRA, and then the sub-districts are reflected and established in the regulating plan, which I'll show you in just a moment. As Commissioner Smith mentioned a minute ago, this effort started 20 years ago with the creation of the CRAs, the vision plans, and I like to note that there was never any intent to go back and change or update the vision plans. The visions are really still pretty much intact. It's the tools that are needed to be sharpened, I think, to implement the visions, which is what this has been about. As you know very well, we've created Chapter 18 in the growth management, or the Comprehensive Growth Management Plan, which is dedicated to the CRA. We've also created Article 12 in the Land Development Regulations. These two new chapters, if you will, or elements are meant to be, they were developed simultaneously and compatible with one another. So we believe that we've achieved that. As Irene just presented a few minutes ago, currently you have or until a few moments ago, you had a future land use map with an overlay. And what we're doing is compressing it into the single future land use map, bringing forward some of the essential existing categories that don't change, like general, institutional, and industrial, which is all of the yellow here. In Article 12, the land development regulations, this is the rezoning that's taking place. Currently, you have the existing zoning here, and then you have 5 different zoning overlay districts on top of the base zoning within the Golden Gate CRA. So it's very tricky, not only as a professional planner, but you can imagine for investors or for individual property owners to navigate what exactly the rules are that they must comply with. So what we've done, as I said, is we've gone through and understood what the base zoning allows, what the overlays afforded, and created the single zoning category, which is the Golden Gate CRA zoning district. Article 12 has 7 different divisions. Division 1 is the general division that applies to all of the other divisions. This is a table of contents, if you will. Here we are at Division 7, and as was pointed out earlier, all the previous divisions, including Division 1 of General, have been adopted at this point. This is the regulating plan for Golden Gate, and this is what identifies this is the instrument that identifies the sub-districts, the finer-grained instructions for what one can do with their property. Again, the colors are a little hard to distinguish in some cases here. The red is the core. That's meant to be the most walkable and mixed-use area over time. The corridor, which is down here, very similar to the core, but picks up some of the uses that are currently allowed today that are not allowed up here, mainly automotive-type uses. General, which is this area here. Multifamily is the rest of the CRA district for the most part. Public service districts, these dark blue, are the stormwater treatment areas. And then we have the public recreation here and some public servicing districts over there. So these are the sub-districts that are identified. This is the regulating plan at a larger scale. We have industrial as a sub-district. All of this is to remain. We do, and I'll touch on this in a moment, we do recognize that in Golden Gate on Dixie Highway, half of the front door of the community are industrial uses. So we sought to improve those conditions going forward. We have a street regulating plan, which helps the CRA prioritize some street improvements going forward. In this plan, we've also identified the Camino Trail, which is an important project for the CRA, as well as some of the unopened rights-of-way, just for orientation purposes. The illustrative street sections that you've seen before, as you know, we've created in Division 1 the permitted use groups, and those are identified as residential, agricultural, commercial, public institutional, and industrial. That enables us to, in a single table, really identify what are the permitted uses within Golden Gate. Now, I want to point out, if I can see it from here, there has been a change since we presented to you in September, and I believe that was the purpose of the supplemental memo that went out. It was brought to our attention a few weeks ago, by a couple of property owners that there's a concern that by not permitting construction service limited and wholesale trades and services in the core district where their properties were, that we might be rendering them as existing nonconformities, which could create some challenges for them going forward. We've run across this in the past. In Old Palm City, I know we had a condition there. So with the help of your staff and legal staff and Story, we came up with language that essentially entitles those properties to what they have today based upon the effective date of this ordinance. The goal is not to get rid of these uses in the core or put anybody out of business, but also, frankly, not to in the core, have those uses proliferate. The vision is something different for the core areas. So I think as a team, we feel pretty comfortable that we've been able to address those concerns. There have been no changes to the development standards table since our earlier presentation, nor to the assignment of building types for the different sub-districts. As you know, we have this array of different building types here, and we identify where they are permitted and where they're appropriate in the different sub-districts. Each of those building types has its own plate, which gives you a narrative, a description, and dimensional criteria for setbacks, parking, etc. We have some unique ones that you've seen before, like the boat barn. We also have an industrial building type. And in this particular case, I brought this to your attention when we met the first time. We actually increased the landscaping requirements for the industrial building types along Dixie Highway because, as I said, it's maybe 1,000 linear feet of industrial uses along Dixie. That's the front door of the community. So what this language says is that the front setback shall be treated with the required landscaping and open space requirements when frontage types are not provided. So you have an option. You can do a frontage type, bring the building closer to the street and put all of your storage and outdoor containers and things like that behind the buildings, or at least provide some degree of landscaping along the street, because right now there's none. There's a sidewalk, there's a chain link fence with barbed wire, and then there's asphalt and, you know, those important things that happen in industrial property. But we're trying to, through this code, improve that public face. These are the different frontage types that are availed. Some of them are appropriate, some of them maybe not for industrial uses. And then basically that's the presentation for Golden Gate. Here we are, and at this time I'd like to ask Susan Corres to present the recommended actions.
I love that Dana gives me the pleasure to ask the board for ask the board to vote on our recommendations. We move that the board receive and file the agenda item summary and all attachments, including the staff report, for the record as Exhibit 1. Move that the board adopt the ordinance creating Division 7 Golden Gate Community Redevelopment Code of Article 12 LDR, amending the zoning atlas to assign the Golden Gate Redevelopment Zoning District and other zoning districts, and repealing Section 3.267 Golden Gate Community Redevelopment Area LDR.
As reflected in the supplemental memo.
As reflected in the supplemental memo.
Commissioner Campy.
Thank you very much. I'll have some final comments, but I just had a question, and I don't know if it's for Ms. Storier or for Mr. Little or Ms. Corres. There was a resident that spoke this morning about some activities that were taking place near his home. To me, that seemed like commercial activities in a residential area. The changes that you are all making today, if those activities are not permitted currently, are you making changes that would now make them allowable?
We are not making changes that make those things allowable, the things that that gentleman was speaking to. Code enforcement, I believe, works pretty hard to try to mitigate a lot of the enforcement issues that happen in Golden Gate on a regular basis. We're working really closely with Commissioner Hetherington's office to assist code in looking at what could be some maybe more creative solutions for some of those businesses, and we're also working with the business owners. So hopefully we're on the right track, I think, to mitigate a lot of those problems.
So I just want to be clear then, so that people aren't confused. If they're not legally allowable currently, because they're next door to, they're either residential property, what we're doing today doesn't somehow make them allowable. You're still using the district commissioner, Commissioner Hetherington, with our code enforcement. So we're not voting today to give them some kind of a leg to stand on to spray paint boats next to someone's home or run a large landscaping business across the street from residential homes.
No, Commissioner,
None
we are
of that,
not. You are
correct?
correct.
Thank you very much.
Commissioner Hetherington.
Just on that, during the presentations at our NAC, I know that Mr. Little and Ms. Kors, that this conversation came up quite a bit with the NAC, and it was a lot of, and we did take into consideration during the LDRs some of that commentary, but a lot of it was code enforcement based. So since that, we had done several sweeps, and we've put together, quite an elaborate plan. And Ms. Kors, if you would connect with the gentleman and, or have Josh connect, and we can continue that and let them understand what we're doing. But that was a concern of the neighborhood, and so we ensured that these changes would not in any way amplify those circumstances.
No, I can imagine that's got to be the most frustrating thing for a resident, to have those kind of activities happening next to you and feeling like that there's nothing you can do. So I appreciate the effort. Thank you. Harold?
Commissioner Hurt.
Yes, if approved today, or if adopted today, what changes, what improvements, what enhancements will be required on the industrial properties?
Just closing. And you get a chance.
Okay.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, Commissioner, what we're looking to do is require enhanced landscaping along the public right-of-way, or the positioning of buildings with and permitting or requiring frontage types.
So that area is built out. So if adopted today, which presumably this will be, what changes will we see in that corridor, on that strip of industrial?
So I think there's a couple of things happening. Number one is that if adopted today, if somebody were to come in and build a new building or replace a building, they would need to comply with these codes. But these don't retroactively go back and impact existing businesses. However, we have talked about many, many different types of, potential programs with the CRA, where there might be a program to improve, because those buildings may never redevelop. Those conditions could remain just as is for the foreseeable future. But one of the things that we have discussed is that there might be some sort of cooperative program with property owners where over time, with assistance from the CRA, and I can't speak for Susan obviously, but there might be a program to go in and improve that public facade, working with property owners, and maybe some assistance to help pay for landscaping, irrigation, that type thing. But it's not meant to be punitive. This is meant for, redevelopment going forward.
So you're talking about using tax dollars in order to enhance landscaping?
In order to improve the public right-of-way, absolutely.
Thank you.
Commissioner Campy.
I don't know if we heard it yet, but I would make a motion to accept staff's recommendation as it was presented.
Second.
Okay, Commissioner Smith.
It just sparked a thought when that conversation was having some years back, and I think it's in Sarasota, I'm not 100% sure. They adopted, and this is something I was even going to talk about with the tree trimming ordinance. Harold, you might know, because there's probably very few people who actually do this, but there was a tree relocation program, and I think Sarasota adopted it, that whenever a project came in and there were specimen trees to a certain caliper of size, the county would pay for or save or whatever those specimen trees and move them into the county right away, because they're really, it would take 25, 30 years to get a tree to be of a size where you're going to get something out of it that would resemble a huge canopy. Anyway, it's something we may want to look at for the future, that, and I know relocating trees, and that's your business, is a special business, but for the purpose of enhancing those right-of-ways, that could be a really cool thing to do.
That program was initiated by Jack Siebenthaler. He's passed away now, and Sarasota has always led the state with tree protection. Broward County also has a program very similar to that, and they insist that some historic or historic trees be preserved and or moved on site, or the county will take them and put them in the right-of-way, from what I understand. So, yeah, that's something that once we get back to our tree protection ordinance, which is on pause right now, is something that we can.
If I may just briefly add to that, there's a group down in Delray Beach, I think they're called Community Greening, but they're a not-for-profit, and what they do is they provide the link between, say, a development project that's coming in, and they're going to have to remove trees, and where those could go. So it's actually run outside of the government. There's some collaboration made between the property owners and, the senders and receivers.
Right.
But they seem to have pretty good luck down there as well.
Okay. We had a motion by Commissioner Campy. We had a second by Commissioner Heatherington. I do not have any public on this specific item. Does anybody? Okay, with that, all in.
When you're done.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Hurd dissenting. Commissioner Campy.
This is the last time I'll get to say this. I just wanted to compliment Mr. Little from the Treasure Coast Regional Planning Council. When he started this process, he had a very excellent associate that was working with him, Jessica. You've been at this so long that she had actually been pregnant, and I just heard her son graduated high school. But all kidding aside, I wanted to thank you. I felt that this is the last example where you have worked these neighborhood projects as though you were only working on one, not 6. You and your team have learned the intricacies of every neighborhood, probably more so than even the commissioners. When you just quickly say about hundreds of meetings and interviews and daytime and nighttime, I don't think anyone has worked from a consultant point of view as diligently and as effectively as you have, and with Jessica in the beginning as well. You have our gratitude. You didn't do it alone. I know that our growth management staff has been with you every step of the way, as has our Office of Community Development. But then our volunteers, the folks that are on the CRA and the NACs, really made this a passion project. And I know that there are so many residents that and business owners that have really dreamed, might be an overstatement, but there are people that have been desperate to have these changes, these clarifications for, as Commissioner Smith said, for decades. And so although we've sort of reached the end of it and it sort of is almost anticlimactic at this point, it is a Herculean effort that you have accomplished with our team, and it'll have really long-lasting positive benefits forever I already have seen the advantages and the results of your efforts and the team's efforts in Palm City already. People are already talking about it. Once the confusion was gone, people could really start to understand what their possibilities were, whether it was their home or their business. Even residents didn't necessarily want to improve their homes if they were close to a commercial area that they had no understanding of what could take place there. So as far as I'm concerned, you have done remarkable work, and I just wanted to thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
I echo Commissioner Campy's comments. South County thanks you. Okay, with that, we have 4 minutes till our 10:30 break and our 10:30 preset. So we're going to take our closed captioning break now. We'll see everybody back in 10 minutes.
All right.
Mary Kay, you ready? Yep. All right, so we've got everybody back. Welcome back. We're going to do our 10:30 preset. Public hearing number 3, public hearing to consider adoption of an ordinance amending Article 6 relating to tobacco products, and Article 7 relating to electronic nicotine delivery devices. Chapter 87, General Ordinances of Martin County Code, Ms. Elise Elder.
Good morning, Commissioners. Elise Elder, Senior Assistant County Attorney. Like Commissioner Jenkins said, we're here in a public hearing to consider an amendment of Article 6 and Article 7 of Chapter 87 of the General Ordinances of the Martin County Code regarding tobacco products and nicotine electronic delivery devices. This public hearing was brought at the request of Commissioner Hetherington. Just by way of background, in December of 2019, President Trump raised the age for the sale of tobacco products from 18 to 21. This left some states inconsistent with federal law, and Florida was one of them. In the beginning of the year, the Florida legislature passed a bill, Senate Bill 810, that raised the age of smoking or purchase of tobacco products in the state of Florida to 21. It also banned certain flavored liquid nicotine products. Last month, in September, Governor DeSantis vetoed that bill. So right now, the books in Florida is 18 for the purchase of tobacco products, but federal law is 21, so it is enforced throughout the United States as 21. So a lot of local governments are going to start raising the age in their ordinances. Vero Beach raised it, Fort Lauderdale raised it, other counties have raised it. So this proposed ordinance, the first thing it does raise the age to purchase tobacco products in Martin County to 21, so we would be consistent with federal law. The other thing it does, it expands the definition of tobacco products in Martin County pretty significantly. It includes liquid nicotine and tobacco products, gel products, because there's been a lot of new developments and products produced. So this expands the scope of tobacco products in Martin County. And then the final thing it does is it creates a tobacco distribution license in Martin County. So you'll have you have your federal regulations, you have your state regulations of tobacco. This will just create a regulation in Martin County where tobacco retailers will have to purchase tobacco distribution license. That license will be issued by the tax collector each year. So it will kind of mirror our business tax receipt license. There'll be a yearly fee, and it will have to be renewed by September 30th of every year. It's really, this ordinance is a collaboration of 4 constitutional offices, with the tax collector distributing the license. The sheriff's office will enforce the ordinance, so they will be responsible for that aspect. I do want to note that, I'm going to move down and pull up the ordinance. So we have the proposed ordinance in the agenda packet. There's been a request for a slight change to section 87-142. That's the enforcement provision that the sheriff or the county law enforcement officers will conduct random and unannounced inspections at locations. There's been requests to add the word frequent to that provision. So it would read, county law enforcement officers may conduct frequent, random, and unannounced. We checked with the sheriff's office, and they are okay with the addition of that language. So that would be a slight change to the proposed ordinance. But the sheriff's office would enforce the ordinance. For those businesses that violate the ordinance, there are penalties. For a first penalty within a 24-month period, there is a 7-day suspension of the tobacco distribution license and a $100 fine. If there's a second violation, it's a 30-day suspension and a $250 fine. A third violation is a 90-day suspension with a $500 fine. And then a fourth violation in a 24-month period would be permanent revocation of the license. Right now, we are proposing the annual license fee is $300. That was just based on recommendation from some material of the Heart Association. That fee is established by the board through resolution, so it's flexible to what the board prefers. All of the fees and penalties generated from Article 6 and Article 7 will go into a trust fund that will be monitored by the clerk of the court. It's to prevent underage use of tobacco products. That trust fund will be used to administer the program and also to provide grants to public and private schools to prevent tobacco use by underage children, basically, for different programs. The grant procedure will be run through our Health and Human Services Department. They will vet out the grants, and then grants will be finally approved by the board at board meetings. There are changes to Article 7 as well. The changes to Article 7 look significant, but they're really not, because we expanded the definition of tobacco products. A lot of the information that are in Article 7 is now included in Article 6. What Article 7 continues to do, and it does currently before this proposed amendment, is it governs the use of vapor-generating electronic devices. Under Florida law, counties cannot regulate smoking. We're preempted. The state can only regulate smoking, but counties are specifically allowed to regulate the use of vapor-generating devices, and this continues to do that. So under Florida statutes, Chapter 386, you can't smoke or vape in certain spaces, usually indoor workspaces. So what this ordinance does, it keeps it the same, that you cannot vape within 50 feet of any place you cannot smoke, and it also prevents you from vaping in county parks. So that stayed the same. So the proposed ordinance, if the board adopts that, we would ask you to also adopt the resolution and establish the fee for the tobacco distribution license. The tax collector requested the penalties that we have provided in the proposed resolution. Right now, they mirror the penalties if you are late for renewing your business tax receipt. Because she's using the same software, she asked for the same late fees for failure to timely renew your tobacco distribution license. She needs to upgrade her software to accommodate this license, so we are proposing an effective date of February 1st, 2021. And that summarizes the proposed changes, but I can answer any questions. Oh, I do want to mention that Martin County will be the second county in the state of Florida to have a tobacco distribution license. Alachua County was the first, and they established that in 2019. And that's it.
Okay. Commissioner Heatherington.
Thank you. And I'd just like to thank a lot of the individuals that have helped work on this, because we convened about a year ago and with a number of stakeholder groups, which included the Martin County Chamber of Commerce, or Stewart Chamber of Commerce, Palm City Chamber of Commerce. We had representatives from the school district. We have mental health professionals, Takes and Teens, and some others. We had law enforcement, and a number of individuals sitting around the table, looking at the data and looking at what we could do to prevent underage tobacco use. Because it is, before we started talking about COVID as a public health crisis, underage tobacco use and underage vaping has been and is a public health crisis. And I think someone mentioned earlier, Martin County, our numbers in 2018, we are some of the highest underage usage in our youth compared to all of our surrounding counties. So Martin County is higher than St. Lucie and Okeechobee and Palm Beach County. We have 1.5 million residents. Percentage-wise, Martin County youth were higher than all those counties. That shows me that we have some work to do in Martin County. Like I said, we did the stakeholders, and some of the statistics, 1 out of every 20 middle school users has reported, using e-cigarettes in the last 30 days. 1 out of 5 high schoolers. Now, mind you, middle schoolers can be as young as 13, I think someone said earlier. So you have 13-year-olds now that are using these, and most commonly, it is the vaping type electronic cigarettes that these young kids are using. Now we've got 13-year-olds who become addicted very quickly, and when they should be focusing on their school, their sports, their friends, now you have 13, 14, 15-year-olds battling addiction. I have two, now they're high schoolers, but if you could hear some of the recounts of when they were in middle school and they have friends in 6th and 7th grade that the peers that are 13, 14, 15, are trying to coach these young adults through addiction because they don't want to go and talk to an adult because they're not supposed to be using these products. So now you have addicted young adults that have nowhere to turn. There are very, very little addiction treatments for that age kids. And it just continues and continues. And then almost certainly, the adult users. So the adult users are not obviously our intent whatsoever, but we have to keep this out of the hands of our younger adults. And talk about compliance. I know that there are people that may not understand the licensing, but in order to achieve compliance, we have to know. If you drive up and down US 1 right now, I bet you would notice, and you look in every plaza, you would notice a new vape distribution shop pop up left and right. Now, Mr. Serkis mentioned earlier from the cigar retailers, and he's right. The cigar retailers and some of the tobacco products, they are not targeting youth. I think that you would find very few of the youth, number one, are using cigars. Number two, very few of them now even are smoking cigarettes. But there are retailers who are targeting them. And where there's a gap is that these nicotine, electronic retailers that don't sell the normal tobacco, they are not accounted for. You can't pull up their business license and it reflects. So every day when you drive up and down US 1 and you see these things sprouting up, it's very different, very difficult to achieve compliance when they pop up every day and we don't know where they are. And I look at the licenses, it's consumer protection. When we go to and we sit down in our hairdresser or barber's salon chair and you look up at the mirror, they have their license displayed and you're getting a haircut. So we're asking for a simple license that then we have a directory and it keeps them accountable. Consumer protection, physicians have licenses. Just about every business has licenses, and unfortunately, some of these are to protect from the bad apples. Not every one of these tobacco retailers are targeting youth, but there are, if you look at the statistics, 1 in 5 high schoolers are using these devices, electronic nicotine and tobacco, 1 out of 20. And that is here, and that shows you that they are getting their hands on them, and there's a need for compliance. So again, it's to weed out the bad apples, and it unfortunately, I don't know if there's a way, and maybe, Ms. Elder is to distinguish, you have to cast the net, and I think you've got to bring these electronic distribution centers in to this accounting, and the tobacco retail license is the way to do that. And we can certainly talk about how that's implemented, after we follow the ordinance, but it's something that we absolutely need. It's imperative to keep this out of the hands of young adults. And I can't stress that enough. This is a public health crisis, and it will only get worse, and we can do something locally, and I just thank all the people that have worked on this, and I look forward to kind of moving it forward. No, we have some public comment.
We do. Any other comments is that Flash for me? You want to go?
Just a quick question, Elise. The vape laws that exists for public spaces and for restaurants, can you just give us a 2-second? I think the state updated or passed a couple of years back on vaping. Can you
Yes.
just share with us?
Well, the state regulates smoking, and before last year, the state only regulated smoking. Last year, they amended Florida statutes 386.204, which is the regulation on smoking, to include vaping. So right now, under Florida statutes, you cannot smoke or vape they say it's in an indoor workplace. There are certain exceptions for, like, if you have like a cigar house or something like that. But generally speaking, under Florida law, you cannot vape or smoke in a restaurant. Martin County takes it a step further, and you cannot vape within 50 feet of any location where you cannot smoke or vape under Florida law. So maybe an outside area of a restaurant you could smoke. Under Martin County code, you should not be able to vape if it's within 50 feet of the restaurant.
But you can smoke within the 50 because we can't regulate the smoking.
You can't
outdoor.
regulate smoking, correct. And you cannot vape in county parks also.
So no park vaping and no vaping 50 feet from any
Location where you can't smoke or
that you
vape.
can't smoke, as well as indoor, there's no vaping indoors.
There's no vaping indoors, and that's under our ordinance, but it's also a Florida statute. It was amended in 2019 to include vaping in the smoking ordinance or statute.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any other questions for the staff? Okay, Ms. Kim Nash.
Good morning. My name is Kim Nash, and I am a community health educator. I feel a little muffled. A community health educator for the Quit Doc Foundation. Currently, the ABT and the FDA are the two agencies that regulate our stores, as we've been talking about. But I want you to keep in mind that neither of those agencies monitor all the stores. And the ABT specifically can only monitor according to state statute, which, as discussed, is still age of sale of 18 here in Florida. For FDA inspections, only 23 retailers were inspected in 2019. We don't have the ABT data for 2019, but in 2018, only 35 retailers were inspected. Keep in mind that Martin County has 224 retailers, according to the most recent records. This does not even include those e-cigarette retailers that Commissioner Hetherington mentioned that only sell e-cigarette products, which if you drive down US 1, you can see that there are many of them. Youth access to tobacco products and advertisements targeting youth remain one of the primary focuses of my program year after year. Each year, tobacco companies spend over $1.1 billion a year to market their products, which represents $8,500 spent to recruit each of the new 1.3 million teenage nicotine users each year. 85% of those advertising dollars are spent directly at retail outlets. A small local retail license fee is more than reasonable for the insurances of consumer protection to counteract those efforts. Over the last decade, I have visited anywhere between 40 and 150 Martin County retailers every year to study the way they market and sell tobacco products here in Martin County. I have no enforcement power, but I do observe and collect data, and at times I work on education efforts with those retailers. It seems shocking to me that on average, I alone have studied our retailers here in Martin County on average each year more than the FDA and the ABT combined. But our state resources are limited. So what have I seen? Lack of age of sale signage for one, on both tobacco products and e-cigarette products, but particularly e-cigarette products in the recent years. Advertisements that are at the eye level of children. E-cigarettes that are placed on the counter with self-serve access, conveniently next to candy. Free samples that are offered, which is a clear violation of law. In discussions with some retailers, they've told me that they have their own concerns about how to counteract youth tobacco use. One retailer told me he'd be interested in extra signage or educational opportunities to help them combat youth tobacco use initiation. The licensure requirement would be the first for local e-cigarette retailers. We would finally have some record, and we are way behind because kids have been using these products for 6 years.
Your time is up. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. Dr. Barry Hummel.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Barry Hummel.
I'm here to speak today in support of this ordinance, both as a pediatrician and also as a founding member of the Tobacco-Free Partnership of Martin County. Our local partnership is a community coalition that works on a variety of local tobacco prevention and cessation efforts. And I'm here today to thank you for taking action to help us reduce youth access to tobacco products here in Martin County. Nearly 90% of all tobacco users start between the ages of 12 and 17. Think about that. Not even allowed to buy it, 90% start. The tobacco industry has always recognized this and targets these vulnerable children and teens with a variety of marketing tactics, including flavored products. Young people are more sensitive to nicotine, become addicted more quickly than adults, so this is a huge issue. The current vaping epidemic demonstrates exactly how successful this type of marketing can be. One of the tools we have in our arsenal is to raise the age for the sale and purchase of nicotine products. Raising the age to 21 helps keep tobacco and vaping devices out of schools and reduces the chance that 18-year-old high school students would be able to purchase these products for underage friends. In December 2019, as we've heard, the federal government actually raised the age to 21. However, age restrictions only work if there is strong, frequent enforcement and penalties for the retailers who break the law. Currently, the only enforcement of the federal age restriction is the FDA. The Florida legislature attempted to address this issue by passing SB 810, which would have codified the new age in Florida. However, this legislation was vetoed, as we heard, by the governor in September, and this means that no state agencies in Florida have jurisdiction to conduct local compliance checks for the new age. So we have a gap. However, the Florida Attorney General's office did issue an informal opinion that local communities are within their rights to create local tobacco retail licensing and for vape shops and issue those penalties and fines for violating local ordinances to cover the cost of those local compliance checks. These local policies work. In California, localities that had a strong retail tobacco license, like the one before you today, youth were 33% less likely to have initiated cigarette use and 26% less likely to initiate e-cigarette use within 18 months of passage of the ordinance. In Minnesota, a similar study found that daily smoking among young adolescents dropped 28% in 14 communities that implemented comprehensive tobacco retail licensing ordinances, and successful youth purchases by underage minors dropped from 39% to 5%. Local ordinances work. Local licensing with frequent, strong enforcement works. Today, Martin County is poised to become a leader on this issue in Florida. The Tobacco-Free Partnership thanks you for your efforts.
Thank you, sir. Any further comment? That's it? Does anybody else in the room want to speak? That's
Mike,
the only
you have anybody?
two.
No, ma'am.
Okay.
My turn?
Commissioner Campy, you pulled your mic down, so that must mean you're ready to rock and roll. I can't see the light.
No, I didn't have it on. I just was showing. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. The first time I met Dr. Himmel was several years ago when a group of young students, what were they called, SWAT? They had come to our commission meetings to talk about flavored tobaccos. There was no such thing as vaping or Stigs or anything like that. It was sort of child-flavored tobacco products, and that group did an excellent job. I remember when they would come, they were like destined for public speaking or politics or something. It was just sharp group. So it's good to see you again, Doctor. And I appreciate that Commissioner Hetherington would bring this forward. Before Commissioner Hetherington got on the board, I was the guy that had the school-age children. And now my kids are, even my youngest, are in college. So I appreciate you taking up sort of the advocating for children and students on the board, even though I will continue to join you. I just had a couple of questions. And as people know, I'm not allowed to speak to Commissioner Hetherington directly outside of this meeting, so I just have these questions, and I'm in favor in probably 95% of what I heard today. I just had some clarification questions on the fee and the licensing. I did hear from my friends during the break that there is no official license or ability to understand and qualify who are e-cigarette or vaping shops. We all see those vape shops all over the place. I didn't realize that they were not under the same requirements for notifying the government entities of what they are selling. So my first question would be, is there an option for requiring those retailers to license like every other retailer is required for licensing, so we could have a better understanding, as Kim said, on who these people are? That would be one of my questions for staff, potentially. Or maybe it's just a question that this, it's more at a state level, I'm not sure. Notification question, someone had called me about this and said, if someone was everyone that's operating a business in Martin County has to have a business license. And I remember when I had my business licenses, you had to sort of specify what type of business you were going into, if you were a plumber or an ice cream shop or a florist or a muffler shop. So I'm wondering if we could not add some questions that would more carefully understand in our current and existing licensing policy, what are you selling in terms of products that might be questionable, tobacco products, e-products. The other question for me is, if the $300 fee is really designed to create a trust fund, which I like that concept of funding, putting some additional money in for education and potentially enforcement, even though I don't know how, if we already have a commitment from our sheriff's office that they would do it. I don't know how we write them a check for $2,500, and so I'm not clear on, I don't know if that little bit of money would make a difference for the sheriff's office or not. But instead of, as a suggestion, instead of collecting $300 as an additional fee for everyone to pay, why not increase, can you bring up the schedule of how you were going to fine people, please? Okay, I don't know if people can see it at home, but the first violation is a 7-day license suspension and a $100 fine. Most likely, if you're caught selling, inappropriately selling products to children, we probably didn't catch you on the first day you were doing it. So with that in mind, maybe the fine should be $500, and maybe as you work your way down, it's $1,000, because instead of charging the people that are following the rules and regulations appropriately, maybe you really go after the people that are breaking the law and breaking the rules. Because if you're running a business and you are somehow capitalizing on illegal activity, a $100 fine is not a big deal. Some of these vaping products and electronic products, if you will, and the cartridges that go with them are very expensive. $100 and then $250 and then $500 could potentially become a cost of doing business. I know that it does get you to the point 4 times in 2 years where you could have a revocation of your license, but to play devil's advocate, you could revoke the license and then my cousin could apply for a new license and we're still in business. So I think if you really dropped a hammer on the people that are sort of poisoning our community, that might be a thing. The other question I had is, you kept mentioning about vaping, and I did hear some conversation about electronic products. I know that, and I don't know if they're just different terms for the same thing, but I'm pretty sure that vaping and Juuls and Stigs are all different categories, and I would want to make sure that our language wouldn't leave any of those potential products out, or if there's the ability to leave it open-ended enough that if some new product or some crazy experimental thing that the kids come up with can also be part of this without us having to come back and layer it back in. And then 2 quick final points. The Quit Doc program and the tobacco-free Martin County have done remarkable work, as the doctor had mentioned in his statistics. I'm wondering where their funding currently comes from and how we can assist and increase their funding stream even beyond this fee. Because if you said it's 224 retailers at $300 a piece, I don't know if that runs the whole program. And my final question is, Ms. Elders had mentioned that we would be the second county in Florida, which is 67 counties, behind Alachua, and they did it in 2019. My question, with all respect, is why haven't any of the other counties done this already? Do they know something we don't? So with that in mind, I'm completely in favor of raising the fee to, the age to 21. I agree. I have twin 19-year-olds. Vaping and Stigs and Juuls and all of the rest of it is rampant in their social circles. And so 21 is an excellent idea. And education and information is an excellent idea. I'm just wondering about some of the logistics of how we handle this so that it doesn't take an excellent idea that Commissioner Hetherington has brought forward and somehow make it controversial because it looks like an additional fee or an additional bureaucratic regulation on businesses. Thank you. You can answer all those questions now.
I
Thanks.
took notes. Okay, I took notes on your questions, so I'll try to answer what I can. The first one I have is if we can include tobacco retailers in our current licensing structure. I'm not really sure how.
Tobacco, the other ones.
Right, well, if we change the definition of tobacco products, then all of those other ones come into they become tobacco retailers in Martin County, but I would have to check with the tax collector. I'm sure there's a way she can do it because she does issue business tax receipts. I believe they have to let you know what kind of business it is. It would be up to her to tweak her software to accommodate that. Vaping products aren't regulated by the state, I believe, right now because the definition of tobacco products in the state doesn't include vaping products. It would have had Senate Bill 810 passed, but it did not. So that's where there's a gap right now. It's because we just didn't update our statute book this past year. So we are doing that in our definition of tobacco products. To answer your question, it would include any kind of tobacco products. We made our definition very broad. It includes Stigs, Juuls, gels, and any other form of tobacco. We did it broad to include all of that. So,
Can I just stop you?
Sure.
Tobacco has its own definition. What about nicotine products? Nicotine is really the real culprit in all of this, and there are avenues of delivering nicotine that is not tobacco-based.
our definition includes tobacco and nicotine products, so it's
Thank you.
all inclusive. And it was actually approved by the American Heart Association. They liked our, because it was inclusive.
Nicotine for human consumption because
Human consumption,
there's
yes.
other uses for nicotine.
The question about having higher fines for a violation of an ordinance, there are statutory parameters you have to stay within, and if you exceed 500, you start getting above what you're allowed to do, and you have to.
We're capped at $500
Yeah.
for enforcement of a county ordinance.
So we can't really, that's why we started at 100 and we limited it at 500 for the third and the fourth violation. And then, I think that answered most of your questions. Did I?
With that in mind, then, if you're capped at 500, then I would make the first violation 500.
Okay.
Just as a suggestion.
They also have a monetary penalty by not being able to sell tobacco products too, so that was kind of an offset. But we can change the penalties to whatever, the board desires. I think that answered the question.
And another question was about, there's only one other county that's adopted an ordinance, and that's Alachua. Do they have any regrets, any intentions to rescind? And, obviously, if there's only one county, there's some downsides.
We actually spoke to the Alachua County Attorney's Office, and they've had some problems with the implementation of their licensing, to be honest with you. There was talk about repeal. I have not heard that they have repealed it, but I know that they have had issues with theirs. They monitored theirs through their code enforcement department and their growth management department. Ours is a little different in that we're going through the sheriffs, and then if someone gets a violation or a citation, that'll go through the courts. So it will be handled similar to parking tickets and dog bites. It'll go through the county attorney's office and it'll be processed through the courts. But Alachua County has had some problems, and there was talk of repeal, but I haven't heard that they have repealed.
I'm concerned about governmental overreach. I'm concerned about a big brother overreach. I don't think, I'm also concerned about misguided enforcement. It looks to me like the manufacturers are the culprit. They're the ones who are creating the problems, and this attempts to legislate morality through retailers. And I think that the retailers who are upholding the law, and there are laws that we can uphold, the ones who are upholding the law are going to be forced to pay an additional $300 to uphold the law. I think that this is going to be particularly punishing to small mom and pop retailers. Also, I don't want to divert law enforcement to inspecting licensing regulations. I don't think that that's the purpose of our sheriff's department. So I have difficulty with, the intent is honorable and worthy. I just don't think that burdening businesses who are upholding the law with an additional license is the way to achieve the outcome that we want.
Yes, so on a couple of those, there are, other than Alachua County, there are several municipalities down in Fort Lauderdale, Broward, other areas that have passed a similar, and then different from Alachua County is they had a third party, so another additional layer, they create a third-party enforcement agency, so it is not enforced by their law enforcement. Our law enforcement is the natural nexus that would enforce this, because they already are. Now, they've had the DARE program that has basically lost all of its enforcement tools since we had the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas Act. All of those resources were diverted to having school resource officers. That's what makes our ordinance I think the best possible way, because our law enforcement in our schools is already, looking and working with schools and doing some of this. That combined with our community policing, it's a natural way to enforcement. It's not a manufacturer issue, because the manufacturers are distributing to the retailers, but it's the retailers that are getting these products into the hands, and that, like someone said earlier, it's not online, all online sales. They are getting them from the retailers, and the retailers have to be accountable. It's not about layering on, another license. And the licensing is key to getting the compliance. We have to know where the retailers are, and we have to know, and the only way to do that is licensing. Now, the way I understand this is we would adopt an ordinance, and then the retail licensing fee resolution is completely separate.
Correct.
So then, certainly we could debate on what that fee should be set at, but as we've heard today, there's nothing that those shops that only distribute these electronic nicotine devices, nothing catches them in that net. And we have to, and look at, it's imperative for our young people. 1 in 5 high schoolers are now using these products and addicted to them. 1 in 20. That, to me, is the biggest public health crisis, and it's only going to get worse. And I don't know how we sit here and look at our residents and look at the people that have children and do nothing. So I will make the motion that we adopt the ordinance, and then we will come back and look at the licensing fee with the resolution.
Did you want to add the word frequent to the enforcement provision when you
Yes,
adopt the
with that change to add frequent.
I missed that last part. Say that again.
Under 87 point, is it 142? 142, we would add the word frequent.
Oh, okay.
So officers may conduct frequent random unannounced inspections.
Okay. Commissioner Smith.
It's interesting. It's the whole conversation about why are there not as many counties or cities that are doing it, and Are there issues with doing it, and how are we getting there? This sort of reminds me some years back when we were dealing with OxyContin and the pill mills that were popping up, and there wasn't really a way to fit in rules on how to regulate that and how to deal with it and stop it. And so, the interesting thing, the legislature passes a bill to start to move us in the right direction. The governor doesn't sign it, unfortunately. And now it's being pushed back down to local government to come up with a resolution on how to deal with what is arguably a significant issue for our youth. And Stacy, I applaud you for pushing and getting this to us. Ed, I thought at one point when you were going through the various ideas that you were going through with the occupational license, I brought up the same question with staff as to, was there a way that, I don't know in the industry, there's probably so much money involved in this stuff, which is why things sometimes don't happen, because they're lobbied not to happen, and people back away from that kind of effort. And it gets forced back to a local government to have to deal with the crisis at hand, because we're the ones that have to deal with the issue here locally. And a much broader scale, it doesn't always look like that. And so I thought where you were going, Ed, and then it kind of shifted a little bit, was that in the fine or in the fee thing, if you really want to eradicate childhood use or the sell or the marketing or whatever we're trying to do to stop kids from being exposed to vaping and anything else that comes along with it, is to connect it to their business occupational license. And the $500 fine is going to be immaterial. Okay, fine me $500, I'll write you a $500 check, and I'll figure out a way to get around the system next time. Because if they're doing it, as you said, Ed, if they get caught doing it, they've been doing it for some time, and it doesn't seem to bother them, and they'll do what they got to do to get where they want to get. And on the manufacturing end, they don't seem to really much care, because their business model is to sell to the convenience-based small mom-and-pop store level, because it's local and kids have access to it. And apparently they're okay with that, because they would change even the distribution model if they were not to do that. And so you really want to put a chink in the armor, you risk your occupational license. The fee itself is a fee. It's a speeding ticket, it's a parking fine, it's whatever it's going to be. People will pay that fee, they'll measure the amount of risk involved in getting caught again. But if you lose your occupational license, you lose your right to do business. And if it's that big of an issue, as we all probably recognize it to be, I mean, I'm fine with where we are today, Stacy, and again, thank you for getting it to us, and the staff for helping you do that. But if you want to stop it like we did with OxyContin, you got to be a whole lot more aggressive than that to stop it. This will keep it at bay. But even as Barry pointed out to us with the statistics of the reduction of the usage, we're in the 20 and 30% range of reducing the age and the usage of vaping. That's great, and it's a fantastic start, but it's not eliminating it. Same thing we had with OxyContin and the pill mills. We had to eliminate it because it was that big of a problem. So I'm more than happy to support where we are today. I just think as the conversation proceeds further, and if it doesn't have the impact that we wished it would have, I think you start looking at the occupational licenses.
Thank you. And just one comment. The key is going to be compliance checks, really, to making sure that, that if you have a first violation, heaven forbid if you have a fourth violation, then you've been really breaking the law. But you can lose your license for up to 24 months.
Well, it's a permanent revocation, so you will lose your
The
license.
fourth violation is a permanent.
Right.
So your third violation, you have to stop, selling your products for 90 days, and you have a $500 fine. So maybe the $500 fine is not, the key is that the 90-day license revocation is going to be a significant source of enforcing, and compliance.
And you can change those day penalties, like the suspension penalties as well. That was just what was, recommended.
When this comes back for the fee portion, Elise, can you bring back?
Oh, she's doing it. We're doing it.
What happens with a liquor license? If you sell to a minor and you get caught selling to a minor, What is the penalty in a liquor sales to kids?
That's regulated by the state. I don't think your license is suspended. I honestly don't know. I didn't
It'd just
look.
be interesting, because it's the same similar kind of thing where there came a point with selling alcohol to minors that it got elevated to a much more serious level. And my guess is it has something to do with you're throwing up your alcohol license sale ability to do so. It'd just be interesting to see what the nexus is between those two.
I can look into that, Commissioner.
Commissioner Hurd.
Yeah. How does the sheriff's department enforce? Do they hire minors to purchase products?
Well, they set up, I spoke to the sheriff's office, they set up sting operations similar to what they do for alcohol, testing alcohol compliance. So yes, I believe they do get underaged. It would be under the age of 21, and they set up a sting operation and they test compliance that way. And I think that's exactly how they do it for alcohol right now as well.
I think they have deputies that look very young.
Maybe. Maybe. But then you're not.
I think they've been using Mike.
But you're not selling it to a minor, so it would have to be a minor. It would have to be a minor, because in order to sell to a minor,
Otherwise it's
you
not
need
a-
a minor
Right.
involved.
Well, now we're going to get the real answer.
You look
Morning.
like you're 18.
Yeah, I do not look under 18. Currently, what we do, the enforcement process for this, if it's passed, of course, would be very similar to what we currently do. Do we use underage people? Yes, we have to. They would have to be under the age of 18. We utilize them. We go to a variety of different locations frequently and sporadically. We do not announce those checks. We do that rather frequently now. Commissioner, you mentioned the bad apples. Those are the ones that obviously we want to address. Having children that are in that age bracket and also working within the school setting, they know where to go. So not only do we do the sporadic and frequent checks, but we also try to target those that we hear about as we address it in the school setting, in the public setting, when we're finding juveniles with these things. We go to those as well. One of the luxuries we have in this community, excuse me, is voluntary compliance. We see a vast majority of our establishments that are already complying with whatever law that's there. So it is, again, it's going to be those bad apples that we want to address and that we catch with this net that you've described. So that answer the question, I hope, Commissioner?
Yep.
Thank you. Perfect.
Thank you.
Anything else before I go?
Can you state your name for the record?
Yes, Ryan Grimsdale with the Sheriff's Office. There we go.
Congratulations on your most recent award or acknowledgement. Good for you.
Appreciate that.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Campy.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify, we're having really two separate conversations in one. Commissioner Hetherington, your motion for the first portion of this was to raise our age here locally to 21. Excuse me.
To amend the ordinance.
Amend the ordinance to make it 21. And then what was the rest of that first portion?
I think Commissioner moved to approve the entire amendment and revise section 87.142 to add the word frequent in the enforcement, but it was an all-encompassing motion for the entire proposed amendment, which would include raising the age, changing the definition of tobacco products, the whole tobacco distribution license scheme, and then also the changes to Article 7 to eliminate some of the redundancy that is now captured in.
I didn't realize you were bundling it all together. I thought we were separating it in two.
Commissioner Campy, then separately, we will consider the licensing resolution that would establish a fee. So there is, we would have to consider separately
the fee,
the licensing resolution, which would also then establish.
Okay.
And that's coming back to us as a...
No, that's going to be right after. If
Yeah,
this is
immediately
approved, we'll
following.
establish the fee right after.
Okay, so I seconded Commissioner Hetherington's motion because I want to be clear in sending, at least from myself, a very clear message that we don't want this in our community. So, but with that in mind, I wanted to be cautious of balancing out what I had said originally, that if there are people that are abiding by the rules, doing everything appropriately, I don't want to create an additional burden on them. My concern and the reason, and maybe Commissioner Hetherington can see our way towards some of this would be, if I'm a gas station or if I'm a greeting card store and I happen to sell tobacco products, cigarettes, traditional cigarettes, I'm already licensed, correct?
Well, you're licensed through, I believe you have to have a state license. You're licensed through the federal government, I believe, and also you have a business tax receipt license through Martin County.
Okay,
yes.
so the answer is yes, I'm licensed.
Yes.
But what I heard during our break from my experts in the field is that if I had a trailer, like an actual mobile trailer, that I sold products, if I was a pop-up retail, if I was a retailer or a vendor at a street fair or a festival, music festival, I have no requirement for a license to sell these electronic or these nicotine products, correct?
Correct, because they are not currently in the definition of tobacco under Florida statute.
Are we allowed to create our own definition of that here in Martin County, or is that a state issue?
No, we've expanded our definition. That's part of the proposed amendment, and it includes all of that.
So if we're sort of closing up that loophole, if you will, do we have the ability to license the people that up until this point had not been required to have a license?
Yes, if they're going to be, I'm pulling up the definition of tobacco products, just so you can see it, because you've asked about it. Yeah, they would be included in the definition of tobacco products, so they would be a tobacco retailer, and they would have to get a tobacco distribution license under this ordinance.
So if I ran a trailer business and I was officially lived and had my license in just Broward, for argument's sake, but I was conducting business, even if it was for a weekend in Martin County, I have to have a license to operate even for a pop-up or a mobile.
Any tobacco retailer will have to have this
Happening,
license.
selling something in Martin, even if I'm located somewhere else, I have to have it.
Yes.
So I think, Commissioner Hetherington, where you and I agree and potentially disagree is, I understand that we need to close the loophole. If there's any retailer or vendor that's allowed to sell products that we're trying to regulate that hasn't currently needed a license, those people should be licensed. And all of the things that you talked about, the fee and the rest of it, and how to track these people and where do they come from, I think that's where I would see a license and a fee. If I'm a gas station at the corner of Canner and Monterey, and I already have all my license, and I'm already selling products, and I'm licensed by the tax collector here and state or federal regulation, then why would I want to pay an additional license fee? I'm already licensed. Where I think you and I might disagree, Commissioner Hetherington, is I would create this license and this fee for people that haven't had to do that yet, not an additional fee for the people that already have it. And then the point about the penalties and how do you stop this, I know that you said there's a $500 max, and I agree with what Commissioner Smith said. $500 in the grand scheme of things is the cost of doing business. You know, you could speed in Martin County and get a $400 speeding ticket. I think maybe we have another option. Instead of making it a 2-year window of violations, a 24-month period, can we shorten that up to be all of those things within a month? Within a year?
Yes.
Because then there's a little more teeth to it. And then my last question, it's a legal question, is someone has a license and they start, they're unscrupulous and they start selling to young people, and it's lucrative. Okay, sadly it's lucrative. And they get all of these penalties. They get the 500 and they get the 100 and the 250 and the 500, and now we've made it a year instead of 2 years. And at the end of the year, I get, they throw the book at me and I have my license revoked. What's to stop me from creating a brand new business entity at sunbiz.com? I call myself, instead of ABC, I call myself XYZ, and I create a brand new license, and I just re-upped my ability to take advantage of the community.
Well, if the licensee is an individual, then you would not be able to as that individual. We can tweak the ordinance to include that it would be the individual owner of the building of the business getting the license in addition to the business, and that would close that loophole right there.
So you'd have to put like the
signer,
like whoever is the officer of the LLC or the whatever it is.
When we create, we could do it via the application. When we create the application, the
With their
license
social
can be
security number on it.
issued to an individual and the business. So it would be the individual who's on the hook.
Okay, I think
Also.
that's part of what we would need to do. I don't know if my suggestions carry water with my colleagues, but I'm a little more comfortable with that.
I am too. Commissioner Smith.
So Ed, I think you're on the track. I'm just curious. So, because I have no doubt that the unscrupulous group will just refile as a new LLC or as a new something, can you also track it to the address so that the convenience store or the business that goes out of business today and reopens tomorrow as a new something?
It will be, every individual location will have to have a separate license, so it will be tracked to the address.
Okay.
So if I have a business and I have 3 different shops, I will have 3 different licenses because it's for each premises, I
Site
believe.
specific. So it'll track with the site as much as it will track with the owner.
Yeah.
I was just saying unless you're a trailer.
Well, but that was a whole separate conversation. You had the trailer, you know, the special event situation, and then you have the permanent facility that is there, that is doing business on a regular basis. Is the fee for the license, is it attached to our ability to regulate and for the sheriff to be able to enforce? Do you have to have a fee to be able to recognize that at which you're buying a license or getting a license to do that? Because right now, the sheriff can't enforce the federal law.
Right.
Correct?
Correct.
So in order for us to enact an ordinance where gives the sheriff the ability to enforce, is that connected to having a fee or a license?
No, we can just raise the age for the purchase of tobacco products to 21 without a license. Other places have done that, and the sheriff would be able to enforce that.
Okay,
The
so there's
license, yeah, you don't need the license in order to raise the age to purchase tobacco products in Martin County.
Okay, thanks.
Commissioner Heatherington.
Commissioner Campy, I understand where you're going, and certainly, you know, you've got the I guess, transient type of businesses, but all up and down, you know, US 1 and other streets is we have those that don't fit in, these that are selling the electronic cigarettes. And in a perfect world, it would be great if the state then had those products incorporated so that there would be an accurate accounting of all tobacco and e-cigarettes. So what we're working with, and I think Commissioner Smith alluded to it earlier, is that the state has not required that, so it leaves it to us, the local government. And the risks are just too high to continue to let these shops operate without any kind of licensing. Again, I think, you know, the next item, we could certainly hash out what is a fair and reasonable fee expectation, but we have to have that ordinance in place to even, and the retail license, regardless of, you know, how it's implemented and fee structure, is almost imperative to compliance. We have to have that accounting, and again, the state hasn't done it, so it leaves it on our lap to do it, and it's just far too important and we have to close that loop. So we can discuss the licensing fees, but it's an important part of the compliance, having the retail licenses in place.
Commissioner Heatherington, I don't disagree with that, and I was saying that I think if there was a loophole where certain retailers and vendors were not required at this point to have a license, I agree that there should be a license for those folks. My concern is that if I'm already, I'll use it as an example, a Wawa, or even a smaller example of a mom and pop that own a card store and sell tobacco products. They already have those licenses in place. So even if we created a license for them and it didn't have a fee, it's just extra paperwork and extra work, and time is money. So what I would recommend possibly as a substitution or a clarification of your motion is that we require a license of any vendor or retailer that doesn't currently have to have a license to sell these products. I know the stores that Commissioner Heatherington's talking about.
Product. I have teenage boys,